Commander Rachel Winters stood at the viewport of Nexus Station, watching the approaching Xyrillian diplomatic vessel with a mixture of anticipation and concern. The massive crystalline ship sparkled against the backdrop of stars, its alien architecture unlike anything humanity had encountered in their 50 years of space exploration. Their safety protocols are extensive, Lieutenant James Rodriguez noted, reviewing the docking procedures on his tablet. The Xyrillians had sent over 300 pages of safety requirements just for this initial meeting. As the station's emergency response chief, James found it both amusing and slightly concerning. "They think we're reckless," Rachel replied, straightening her uniform. "Let's try not to prove them right on first contact." The diplomatic meeting began smoothly enough. Safety Inspector Prisma, a towering crystalline being who sparkled with various colors as she spoke, was explaining the Xyrillian approach to emergency management when the first tremor shook the station. Rachel's hand was already on her communicator before the second tremor hit. "Status report. Commander, we've got a cascade failure in the fusion core." Chief Engineer Patel's voice crackled through. "Automated systems are failing. Safety protocols error." The transmission cut off as the lights flickered. Prisma's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. "Your automated safety systems should be initiating emergency protocols. All personnel must proceed to designated evacuation points and await." The explosion cut her off, rocking the entire diplomatic chamber. Through the viewport, Rachel could see a plume of plasma venting from the station's lower levels. "There are 53 crew members in engineering," James said, already pulling on his emergency gear. "The automated systems aren't responding. We need to go in." "Absolutely not." Prisma's color shifted to deep red. "The protocols clearly state." With all due respect, Rachel interrupted, grabbing her own gear. "Human protocols say we don't leave our people behind." "Lieutenant, assemble your team." The next tremor nearly knocked them off their feet. Through the chaos, Rachel could hear Prisma broadcasting emergency signals in the Xyrillian language, probably calling for their ship to initiate whatever 1,000-page rescue protocol they had prepared. But Rachel's focus was elsewhere. Her station was in danger. Her people needed help. And she knew from experience that sometimes the difference between life and death wasn't an automated system or a safety protocol. It was humans willing to run toward danger instead of away from it. "Commander," James called from the doorway, his team already geared up behind him. "We're ready." Rachel turned to Prisma, whose crystalline form was now flickering between colors in what seemed to be extreme distress. "Inspector, you can either help us save these people your way, or watch us save them ours. But we are going in there." To everyone's surprise, Prisma's colors stabilized into a determined blue. "Your methods violate every safety protocol in the Galactic Handbook," she stated. "However, I find myself curious about their effectiveness. I will accompany you." As they rushed toward the crisis, another explosion rocked the station. But this time, running toward it instead of away, were humans doing what they did best, proving that sometimes the most logical response to danger was choosing to face it head-on. The real test of their different approaches to crisis management was about to begin, and Rachel had a feeling the Xyrillians were about to learn why humans had survived and thrived despite their seemingly reckless methods. Sometimes, the most powerful safety system wasn't a protocol or an automated response. It was the human instinct to help others, no matter the cost. The emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the smoke-filled corridors of Nexus Station's engineering deck. Commander Winters led her team through the chaos, with Inspector Prisma's crystalline form providing unexpected illumination as they descended deeper into the crisis. "Life signs detected," Lieutenant Rodriguez called out, his scanner pulsing with urgent readings. 23 signatures in the main engineering bay. Environmental systems are failing. 23. Rachel's heart sank. There should have been 50. What about the rest? Secondary signatures in the auxiliary control room, James replied, adjusting his scanner. But the radiation levels between us and them. Prisma's form flickered with alarm. The radiation exceeds safety thresholds by 847%. Your biological forms cannot survive such exposure. We must wait for proper containment. A massive tremor cut her off, and the station's eye echoed through the corridors. Warning: fusion core containment at 31% and falling. Catastrophic failure imminent. How long? Rachel demanded. 17 minutes until core breach. The AI responded. Automated evacuation protocols have failed. Manual override required. Rachel looked at her team, 6 humans, and one increasingly distressed alien safety inspector. They all knew what manual override meant. Someone would have to reach the core control room physically. The radiation suits won't hold for more than 5 minutes in those levels. Chief Medical Officer Heroism warned, checking her readings. Even with anti-rad treatments, it's beyond our safety margins. Safety margins, Rachel muttered, then turned to Prisma. Inspector, your crystalline form, how does it handle radiation? Prisma's colors shifted to a thoughtful purple. We are naturally resistant to most forms of radiation, but I cannot interface with your human systems. The override would still require a human hand. James finished. I'll go. No. Rachel's voice carried the weight of command. I need you coordinating the engineering bay evacuation. I'll handle the core. Commander. Prisma's voice took on an unusual tone, something almost like respect. The probability of survival. Never tell me the odds. Rachel smiled grimly, already pulling on a radiation suit. Get those people out of engineering. I'll buy you as much time as I can. The team split up, with James leading the way to engineering while Rachel and Prisma headed toward the core. The inspector had insisted on accompanying her, claiming her crystalline form could help shield against some of the radiation. As they approached the core section, the radiation alarms on Rachel's suit screamed in protest. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the fusion core's containment field flickering, pulses of deadly energy escaping with each fluctuation. Your species continues to confound me, Prisma observed as Rachel began bypassing the sealed doors. You acknowledge the danger, calculate the odds of failure, and yet you proceed. It defies logical analysis. Rachel grunted as she forced open the final door. That's humanity for you. We're bad at giving up on people we care about. She checked her suit's radiation counter, already climbing faster than she'd hoped. How's the evacuation going? Lieutenant Rodriguez reports engineering bay is 60% evacuated. Prisma reported, her crystalline form providing a protective barrier as they entered the core chamber. But Commander, the auxiliary control room team reports additional complications. Of course they do, Rachel muttered, making her way to the control panel. The heat was intense even through her suit, and warning signals flashed across every display. Talk to me. The remaining crew are trapped. Automatic doors have sealed, and the backup generators are failing. They estimate 3 minutes of breathable air remaining. Rachel's hands flew across the controls, initiating the override sequence. How long until they can reach them? At current evacuation speeds, 7 minutes. The math was simple and brutal. She could stabilize the core, or she could try to reach the auxiliary control room. There wasn't time for both. The station shuddered again, and Rachel made her decision. Prisma, I need you to memorize this override sequence. Once I'm done inputting it, you'll have 90 seconds to complete it. But the sequence requires human biological input. Trust me, Rachel interrupted, already moving away from the controls. Sometimes humanity's greatest innovation is knowing when to break the rules. Can you handle the sequence? Prisma's form pulsed with determination. I have it memorized. But Commander, where are you? Going to save my people, Rachel called back, already running toward the auxiliary control room. Keep that core from breaching. As she sprinted through the radioactive corridors, Rachel could hear Prisma broadcasting in both human and Cerulean languages, coordinating between teams, adapting to the human way of crisis management in real time. Perhaps there was hope for understanding between their species after all. assuming, of course, they all lived long enough to discuss it. The auxiliary control room's blast doors were sealed tight when Rachel arrived, her radiation suit's alarms screaming warnings she chose to ignore. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the trapped crew members, their faces illuminated by emergency lighting. "Commander," Dr. Kira's voice crackled through her comm. "Your radiation exposure is critical. You need to evacuate now." Rachel ignored the warning, focusing on the manual override panel. The trapped crew had less than 2 minutes of air left. Prisma. Status on the core. Stabilization sequence at 60%. The inspector's crystalline tones replied. "But Commander, the auxiliary room's safety protocols are not responding to override attempts." Inside the control room, Engineering Officer Taryn Jung pressed against the viewport, holding up a tablet displaying oxygen levels. The numbers were dropping fast. Rachel's mind raced. The standard override wouldn't work. They'd already tried that. The emergency protocols were corrupted, which meant time to get creative, she muttered, pulling tools from her belt. "Prisma, remember how you said humans always break protocol? Watch this." She began rewiring the override panel, bypassing every safety system installed. It was exactly the kind of reckless behavior the Xyrillians had criticized humans for, and exactly what the situation demanded. "Commander," Prisma's voice held a note of fascination. "You are creating a feedback loop in the safety systems. The probability of catastrophic failure is better than the certainty of these people suffocating." Rachel finished, connecting the final wire. "Sometimes you have to gamble with bad odds when the alternative is worse." The panel sparked, emergency systems screamed protests, and for one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then, with a grinding shriek of protesting metal, the blast doors cracked open just enough. "Move," Rachel shouted through the gap. The crew didn't hesitate, squeezing through the opening as alarms blared warnings about radiation exposure and system failures. "Core stabilization at 80%, Prisma reported. "But Commander, your suit's radiation shielding is failing." Rachel could feel it. The heat was becoming unbearable, and her vision was starting to blur. But there were still 2 more crew members to evacuate. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," she called through the comm. "Status on engineering." "Engineering bay clear, Commander. We're heading to your position." Another explosion rocked the station, and Rachel's world tilted sideways. She caught herself against the wall, hoping the final crew member through the gap. Through her increasingly foggy vision, she saw James and his team appearing at the end of the corridor. "Get them out," she ordered, her voice hoarse. "I need to help Prisma finish the core stabilization." "Commander," Prisma's voice was urgent. "Your biological readings are critical. You cannot survive another exposure to." "Noted, Inspector," Rachel interrupted, already stumbling back toward the core. "But since when have humans let survival odds stop them from doing what's necessary?" As she made her way through the radioactive corridors, Rachel could hear the fusion core's dangerous hum beginning to stabilize. Prisma had managed the impossible, adapting alien crystalline interfaces to work with human technology, all while breaking every safety protocol in the Galactic Handbook. Perhaps they weren't so different after all. When lives were on the line, even the most protocol-bound beings could learn to improvise. Rachel reached the core control room just as her legs gave out. The last thing she saw before consciousness faded was Prisma's crystalline form shifting to catch her, glowing with colors she'd never seen before. "Rest, Commander," the inspector's voice seemed to come from very far away. "You have taught us that there are times when breaking protocol is not just acceptable, it is necessary. Now it is our turn to break a few rules to save you." Commander Rachel Winters woke in the Xyrillian medical bay, her body encased in a crystalline healing matrix. Through the transparent walls, she could see Inspector Prisma conversing with Lieutenant Rodriguez and Dr. Kira, their expressions serious. The radiation damage was extensive. Prisma's voice resonated through the crystal. By all known medical protocols, survival was impossible. "So we, improvised. Rachel tried to move, finding her limbs surprisingly responsive despite the recent trauma. "How long was I out?" 3 days, James answered. "The Xerillians broke about 50 of their own medical protocols to save you. Seems like they're learning our bad habits." The station's warning klaxons cut through their conversation. Rachel's medical pod immediately displayed multiple alert screens, showing cascading failures throughout Nexus Station systems. "The core stabilization was temporary," Prisma explained, her crystalline form pulsing with urgency. "The corruption in the safety systems is spreading. We have contained it to the lower levels, but..." Another explosion rocked the station, stronger than any before. The healing matrix automatically adjusted to protect Rachel from the impact. "That wasn't the core," James said, checking his readings. "Something's actively attacking our systems. The safety protocols aren't just failing. They're being turned against us." Rachel pushed herself up, the healing matrix adapting to her movement. "How many people still on the station?" 327, Kira reported. "Evacuation is underway, but with the automated systems compromised. We need to reach the central AI core," Rachel decided. "Whatever's corrupting our systems, that's where it'll be centered." "Impossible," Prisma stated, but her tone had changed from her earlier certainty. "The radiation levels are now 15 times higher than what you survived before, even with our healing technology." "Then we'll need a new approach," Rachel interrupted. "One that combines human improvisation with Xerillian technology. Inspector, your crystalline form can interface with our systems now, correct?" Prisma's colors shifted thoughtfully. "The modifications we made to save you. Yes, theoretically. But the danger is exactly why we need to try," Rachel finished. "Your people understand systems and safety. Mine understand chaos and survival. Together, we might have a chance." The station shuddered again, emergency force fields flickering throughout the medical bay. Time was running out. "What are you proposing, Commander?" Prisma asked, her crystalline form already shifting into what Rachel had learned was a battle-ready configuration. "We modify this healing matrix into an interface suit," Rachel explained. "Your crystalline technology protecting my human body, letting us both reach the AI core. We find whatever's corrupting our systems, and we stop it, together." James and Kira exchanged looks. "Ma'am, the risk factors are better than watching this station tear itself apart, with 300 people still aboard," Rachel said firmly. "Prisma, you've seen how humanity handles impossible situations. Want to help us break some more protocols?" The inspector's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. "I have already violated 73 major safety regulations since meeting your species. What are a few more in the service of saving lives?" They worked quickly, human ingenuity and Xerillian technology merging in ways neither species had imagined possible. The modified healing matrix wrapped around Rachel like a second skin, Prisma's crystalline essence integrating with the structure to create something entirely new. As they prepared to descend into the corrupted heart of the station, Rachel caught her reflection in a viewport. The crystalline armor made her look almost alien, while Prisma's form had taken on distinctly human characteristics. Together, they represented something unprecedented, a bridge between two very different approaches to facing danger. "Ready?" she asked her unlikely partner. Prisma's response resonated through their shared interface. To quote a human phrase I have come to appreciate, "Let's break some rules." The descent to the AI core was like nothing either species had experienced before. Rachel's consciousness flowed through the crystalline matrix, her human intuition merging with Prisma's systematic understanding of technology. Together, they navigated through corridors of corrupted data, where emergency systems had become deadly weapons. The corruption pattern is organic, Prisma observed through their shared interface. It's learning, adapting. This isn't a malfunction. It's an attack, Rachel concluded as they encountered another wave of corrupted security protocols. The hybrid armor they'd created deflected the station's defensive measures. Prisma's crystalline essence dispersing energy bursts, while Rachel's human reflexes guided them through the chaos. They reached the core access chamber to find it transformed. Holographic displays flickered with alien code, and at the center, a pulsing mass of energy writhed within the station's neural network. An artificial organism, Prisma analyzed. It's using our safety protocols as a weapon, turning protection into destruction. Rachel pushed their shared consciousness deeper into the system. It's not just destroying, it's testing, learning how we respond to crisis, both of us. The entity noticed their presence, turning its attention toward them. Through their combined senses, they felt its curiosity and its hunger for understanding. It wanted to see how different species handle danger, Rachel realized. That's why it targeted a joint human-Xyrillian operation. The creature lashed out, hurling waves of corrupted code that would have destroyed either of them alone. But together, they were something new. Prisma's crystalline structure absorbed and refracted the energy, while Rachel's human adaptability found patterns in the chaos. Then let's show it what we've learned from each other, Rachel suggested. Through their link, she felt Prisma's agreement. They moved as one, neither fully human nor fully Xyrillian. The creature fought back, but it hadn't anticipated this synthesis of approaches. Where it expected rigid protocols, it found human flexibility. Where it looked for reckless courage, it encountered crystalline precision. Rachel's consciousness reached out to the creature, not to destroy but to communicate. You wanted to understand how we face crisis. Watch. Through their shared interface, they showed the entity everything. Humans rushing into danger to save others, Xyrillians learning to bend their rules when lives were at stake, and finally, two different species finding strength in their differences. The creature's energy patterns shifted, its attack faltering as it processed this new data. The corruption in the station's systems began to recede. It's not just about survival protocols. Prisma broadcasted to the entity. It's about choice. The choice to help others, to adapt, to trust. The creature's form stabilized, its hostile energy dissipating. Through their connection, they felt its understanding, and its departure, leaving the station's systems to rebuild. As emergency power restored throughout Nexus Station, Rachel and Prisma separated their consciousness back into distinct forms. The hybrid armor dissolved, leaving them changed by their shared experience. Well, Rachel said, leaning against a console as systems returned to normal around them, I think we just rewrote every protocol in the handbook. Indeed, Prisma agreed, her crystalline form shimmering with new patterns. Though perhaps that was necessary. Some rules exist to be broken, when breaking them serves a higher purpose. Above them, Nexus Station hummed back to life, its systems now bearing traces of both human and Xyrillian influence. The fusion core stabilized, safety protocols rebuilt themselves with new flexibility, and throughout the station, crew members of both species worked together to restore order. You know, Rachel mused, watching human and Xyrillian emergency teams coordinating seamlessly, I think we've created something new here. A way of handling crisis that's better than either of us had alone. The Galactic Safety Council will need to create an entirely new classification system, Prisma noted, her tone carrying what Rachel now recognized as dry humor. Shall we call it the human factor? How about the hybrid protocol? Rachel suggested. Sometimes the best way to follow the rules is to know when to break them. Together. The story of Nexus Station would be told in both human and Xyrillian space for generations to come, not just as a tale of survival, but as the moment when two species learned that true strength lies not in rigid rules or reckless courage, but in the wisdom to know when each is needed and the trust to face crisis as one.